Hey guys, I wanted to take a second and give you a writing tip of the week this week. We have been working on our narrative drafts and we've talked about story modes and we've talked about pacing and exposition. And this week we're going to talk a little bit about description in writing. And one thing that tends to happen is that sometimes when students are describing something in their story, they are actually telling the reader something instead of really showing the reader where they can get a visual. So when you tell, you're still being pretty vague and it's still hard for the reader to actually grasp what you're saying. So we're going to look at some examples that show how you can take some of your writing from what's called telling or being vague and broad to more specific showing with descriptive sensory details. So let's look at this sentence on my screen here. The man is old. So if you read that sentence, you might picture any generic old man. It might even be like a cartoon clip art in your mind, or maybe your grandparent. But that word old is an abstract word, and there are all kinds of different ways that we can envision it. So let's look at an example that shows old from Stephen King, the master of horror writing, through some descriptive details. The codger reaches out and caresses Halleck's cheek with one twisted finger, his lips spread open like a wound, showing a few tombstone stumps poking out of his gums. They are black and green. His tongue squirms between them and then slides out to lick his grinning, cracked lips. Oh my goodness, that is a much different version of old, right? So now we have an old that's kind of disgusting and definitely very creepy, almost repulsive. So that definitely shows old. Let's look at a different example of old from Mark Halperin. This is from A Soldier of the Great War, and see if we can contrast those two versions. Limping along paths of crushed stone and tapping his cane as he takes each step, he races across intricacies of sunlight and shadows spread before him on the dark garden floor like golden lace. Alessandro Giuliani is tall and unbent, and his buoyant white hair falls, floating around his head like the white water in the curl of a wave. Okay, now that's a very different kind of old. That's a elegant and honorable old man. Two very different versions of old here. So think carefully as you write your drafts about whether you are telling and still being pretty vague, or whether or not you're providing enough descriptive sensory details to really show in your writing. These are some sentences I read in student drafts this week that are that are telling sentences instead of showing. I was exhausted. My friend was so mad. And finally, I was terrified. So those are telling sentences because they are still vague. They are not yet showing what does mad look like for your friend. When I get mad, I get really quiet and my whole body kind of turns red. I'm a redhead, so I blush and I turn mad. I turn red when I get really mad. What does your friend do that maybe is different? Maybe she's not quiet. Maybe she's loud. So offer more descriptive sensory details to help understand that. Same thing with I was terrified. What does that actually look like? Think about these examples for old and see if you have any abstract words in your story like that you can go in and do what either Stephen King or Mark Halperin did, which is to make us either see that word old as disgusting and repulsive, or to see it as honorable and noble. All right, that's your writing tip of the week, to show, not tell in your writing for the most part. And I hope that helped you some.